Well, I found myself another job. I was cleaning this shower enclosure the other day, and unfortunately, the bracket at the bottom here just snapped off. This shower's been in here since 2015, so it's about 8 years old, and it's had quite a lot of use. And I guess the cleaning chemicals that have been used have gradually weakened it, and they've certainly discoloured the metalwork all around this. It's not a very tidy looking shower at all in that respect. But anyway, this has come off, and although the shower opens and closes at the moment, I can see that it will just collapse one day in my absence and cause someone a problem. So I've decided to replace the whole thing, which is the only option. I can't just replace the bracket. So I've got to get this old one out. In theory, it's just sealed down the edges here, and I've cut this side already, and I've undone the retaining screws on each side of the frame. The retaining screws to the wall for this adjustable part, and also the two screws top and bottom that hold the wall bracket onto the actual shower enclosure frame. So it's starting to get a little bit loose now. I've got to cut through the silicone along the edge here, and then what I'll be able to do is I'll be able to at least move one side off and start to refit the other one. Now, one of the problems is in the instructions I've read, and I'm sure they were the same instructions for this one, you're not supposed to seal this to the wall. You're only supposed to seal it on the outside. You're allowing any water to get behind this, anywhere behind it, and also inside this box frame. The idea is that it will drain away, so you don't completely seal around the bottom on the inside either for that purpose. You want any water that gets in to get out. So the sealant is supposed to be on the outside only, but if the fitter of this shower originally decided to put a bead of silicone down the centre just to make it hold tighter and be more waterproof, as it were, then it's going to be more difficult to get off, because I've got to get that cut, and of course it's hidden and recessed. So I will now proceed to try and get this side loosened, and we'll see what goes on. Well, I'll show you what's going on here a little bit, just so you can understand the importance of following instructions. I've started to cut the sealant here, and all this black gunge is coming out. This is probably years of trapped water that's gone rotten, and that suggests to me that there's sealant in the wrong place. But I have managed to punch through here, so maybe the sealant is just near the bottom, but I'm going to make my way up the top, trying to get this metal tool, the scraper, through. Right, I'm starting to achieve results now. I've cut the silicone away from the very bottom, the white silicone that goes around the edge, and I've managed to get the blade in right at the bottom and push it through, and it's now loosened off the bottom bit, and where I've already managed to get the blade through all the way. So that's good, because I can now start to put some pressure on the silicone as I'm actually trying to cut it with the blade, and that will make it easier to give way. Go and get a couple more screwdrivers maybe to stick in there to keep it under pressure and leave it away from the wall. Right, I've almost got this side off. There's just a tiny bit at the top left to prise off, and as I'm prising it outwards now, I can hear the silicone sort of coming away and splitting. I've actually got both sides loosened off enough that this frame is now free at the top, as you can see. This bit is used for adjusting walls that aren't true. So unfortunately, although that frame in theory would pull out now of this side at the top, it's actually not free down the bottom, so I can't just get that major bit of the frame and the door out and put to one side. So I've got to carry on with my loosening up to the very top here and then get both the adjustment plate and the frame out together. That was quite satisfying. I just literally levered both of those tools and I heard a great big and it came away. So that is now off the wall. And I'm lucky there isn't any silicone in the middle. It was just silicone that was on the edge here that was holding it. So both edges were siliconed, and that was just enough to keep it tight against the wall. There's a lot of cleaning up to do, but that's bound to happen. I'll get my sieve and give that a good clean. So next thing is to pull this old door out and then get this side bit off here separately, and then I can give this place a good clean before offering up the new frame and seeing where the drill holes go. If I'm very, very lucky, they'll be in exactly the same spots, but I doubt I will be. I've taped up the doors. This will help to keep them from swinging open when I'm carrying this lump downstairs. As long as I've got it at the right angle, it will help to keep it closed naturally, but that will just give some resistance, give me a fighting chance not to have an accident. Now you can see the state of this. So this is 8 years of shit, really. Well, this is all marks from the scrapers, but down the bottom here is true mould and shite. Yeah, what I'm going to do, I think, is I'm going to give this a good clean up, and then in this corner here, where the water's actually got in, there's actually no sealant, so I need to put a little bit of sealant on there, and obviously on the other side as well, so when the new frame goes in, it's more sealed between the tray and the tiles. This tray, I know, it has got upstands all the way around, so just behind that tile there is an upstand, but nevertheless I want to try and stop any water and gunk getting in around the upstand, because it would likely travel backwards along here and eventually find its way out as mould growth. Yeah, it's just a bit horrible looking, isn't it, really? It's a bit of a packer that was used to keep it level. So a little bit of cleaning to do, but it's been watertight, this shower. I've not had any trouble with leaks in terms of it actually leaking behind the tiles and coming through the roof, through the ceiling below. It's a very, very good upstand type of tray. Most trays are built without an upstand. You rely totally on the skill of the installer and the way he seals it to get it watertight. But this is built with these little upstands, which are very vertical, not soft ones like this one here at the front. And so it is pretty waterproof even without sealant in, frankly. But this edge is fantastic because the door sits on the other side of it, and you don't need to seal along the edge. In fact, they say not to seal along the edge because it allows water to free flow, and just any cleaning materials you want to get in there can get in there. You're not then vulnerable to the sealant trapping dirt and grime. And yeah, it's fine, it never leaks. I've been very pleased with this, and I've got this in another bathroom as well, this type of shower, and I've had it in two other properties as well. I swear by it. Yeah, managed to catch the edge of that unfortunately, but I plan to decorate in the next 12 months or 2 years, so that's easily repaired. I'm a bit out of breath. That's quite heavy. That's about 23 kilos, I'd say, something like that. According to the instructions for the new one, that's about 23 kilos. So it's a bit of a lump. Anyway, that can go down the tip in due course. It's oh yeah, it's a bit. It's more about technique than brute strength. I'm not a very strong person. I'm quite small, so you can't ask me to do really heavy jobs unless I have an opportunity to think about the technique. So with that one, yes, I did have to lift it up, but I had my arms pretty much outstretched, so I wasn't using any real muscle power to hold it up. And then it's just a question of getting the right place on it, on that frame, so it balances itself really. So I'm not actually having to struggle with the one end that's heavier than the other. It's all balanced around where I'm holding it. And just be very aware of your decorations, where your walls and your ceilings are, which unfortunately I wasn't near the door. Right, now, time to get this all cleaned up. And well, I've got to lever this one off first. I'll lever this one off, then I can clean the whole thing up and start bringing the new one up. It's a very satisfying sound. I think it will pull off now. Right, that's that side clean. That's very easy. Now there are certain things in life that I can never do without. One of them, you probably know if you've watched previous videos, is the use of washers, where you might think, why are you bothering? Another one is this. You can't beat it. I'm going to do an advert for this now. I'm not sponsored by them, but I tell you what, I've never found anything better. There are copies, there are own brands, and there are branded products that claim to be as effective as this, but they aren't, in my experience. This is so tough, it will take paint off. If you leave it on long enough, it'll take the paint off. So it does a very good job, and it very rarely fails me, to be honest with you. It's the most expensive of all the cleaning creams, but not by very much, to be honest with you, and it's well worth it. Right, so I've done that side. I've cleaned up this corner here. That needs to dry a bit, and I'm going to put a tiny bit of silicone just in there, in that corner. Just literally a very small bead. the frame won't be affected by that, and hopefully I won't put too much on that when I put the frame in. It makes it more stuck, so it's difficult to get out next time. But I just feel that the grout that's in there is not going to be enough to keep water from going in there and travelling sideways, possibly, especially as the whole construction of this shower room gets older and older and things start to deteriorate very slowly. So anyway, that's nice and clean now. I just need to do this side, and then I can go and get the 2 external frames and start working out where I need to drill holes. Right, here's the new door. So the question is, am I going to be lucky with the position of the holes? Because that's what's going to take me some time and effort. No. I don't think I am. Let's think about this. That's the top of one, and that's the top of one. Yeah, that's a shame, isn't it? The holes are not in the same position. Well, it was almost guaranteed to be like that, wasn't it? Look, they're almost in the same position. Now, I've got a choice here. What I could do is I could punch through the plugs in the wall for the old holes and fill them with grout, or silicon sealant preferably actually, and drill new holes. But I'm not inclined to do that. I'm actually inclined to drill a new hole in this frame to match up the existing plugs. And I'll tell you for why, because I can mark that pretty accurately using the old piece here as a template. And the thing is that the more times you need to drill into tiles, the more risk you've got of splitting them. And also the more risk you've got of the hole being slightly in the wrong position because the bit travels. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these 2 pieces upstairs and I'm going to work out where this frame, the new frame, is going to sit, because obviously it looks like the old frame was quite a lot thicker than the new one is, and the actual width of this plate here is more than the old one. So that might affect where the whole thing sits on the base, and that could be key to how I approach this fixing issue. So let's get back upstairs with these 2 and see what we've got. Right, I don't know how easy this is going to be to show you because I'm working close up. I've got to put this on wide angle just to get a decent picture. So the old frame, let's get that back in there. The old frame sat just inside this tray, so it was literally butting up to where that slope goes down. That's going to be where the new frame sits, so it's sitting a bit further in. But of course it's still sitting on top of this rather wide edge, so I don't see a problem with that. It's slightly in a different position, but what it means is there's actually more room to do cleaning along that edge there. If you get water underneath the frame, it's going to be easier to actually clean it up afterwards. So I don't have a problem with that at all. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark holes on this frame here. I'm going to drill fresh holes through the metal because I think that's going to be easier. and then I don't have to worry about using fresh holes and plugs in the wall here. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to cut out some of the work, because I can hole punch this frame to make a little dent where the hole has to be, so the drill will be very accurate. And it's very, very thin metal. It's only aluminium. It's very, very thin. So it's going to be easy to drill, I think. Okay, let's get this downstairs and we can sort that out. Not only that, but I have one less hole to drill, because it turns out that on this particular one the holes are lined up already. So that means I've only got to drill 5 holes. Right, what I've done here is I've clamped the bar to a piece of old off-cut wood. So when I drill through, it will go through into the wood. That's probably the safest way of doing it. And it will probably help to keep the metal nice and tidy as well. I've got one of the uprights in, and it's vertical, using the existing holes and the same screws, so that's brilliant. Makes my life a lot easier. So now I'm going to get the door, because we need to put the other upright adjusting bracket onto the door and then slide the door into here, and then we tighten that up and fix that afterwards. So I've got to get this big door up here now. Oh, it's harder getting that back up the stairs than taking the old one out. I think it's because I didn't really care what happened to the old one. If it broke, I would just tidy the mess up and it wouldn't matter. But obviously when you've got the new one, you don't want it banging in against anything. And also, because it's narrower in profile, it's actually cutting into my skin more, so it's a bit more painful to carry it. Okay, now I have to get this on the end. That's it. Now I've got to lift it in to position. Now, this is going to be interesting, because I think the radiator might be in the way. Let's see what we can do. Well, you know what? I'm going to do this differently. I'm going to do this differently to how they suggest, because it's clear to me that one person is going to struggle to get that frame in there, because it is quite tight. Of course, it's deliberately made tight so it can hold. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this side piece onto the door on both sides, and then I'm going to offer the door up, and I'm going to get, if I can just get one screw in one hole, then that releases me from having to hold the door steady and upright so much, and then I can get another screw in quite easily. So that's what I'm going to do. So I want a screw in my mouth. There you go. Job is all but done now. Just a little bit of silicone sealant to go along the outside there. And they say to do it a little bit up here as well, just about 100 millimeters. I guess that's in case water sort of moves upwards through capillary action, or indeed if there's a lot of water getting in there, it builds up a little bit. But I don't really need to do that, to be honest, because if the water does come out of there, it's going to go back into the tray. In fact, I probably don't need to seal it at all, really, because any water that does find its way through this gap now, because the door's actually inset further than the old door, any water is literally going to end up in the tray on the right side of this upstand bit. So I don't really have to seal it, but I will. Now let's just have a look how we've got on the old movement. Well, it's much better than the old one, of course, because it's quiet and smooth. It doesn't open as far as the old one, but I understand why that would be, because there's going to be a handle sticking out here. So that's obviously you've got to be very careful that that handle doesn't knock against the glass, because it could smash it if someone opens the door rather quickly. Right, so what have we got here? A little bit of packing paper. I think I'm quite happy with that. Let's just do my sealing very quickly, because there won't be much to do. Now, to be honest, I haven't looked at the instructions for doing this, and there are loads of bits left. There's some caps here. There's two sets. I don't know where they go. They are different shapes, actually, so I've got a feeling they probably go on to. They probably go on here, two together. But I'm not really that bothered about putting them on, because there's not going to be any splashing up at that height. There never is. And you're not going to see them. They're just going to end up falling off probably when they get loose, in my experience. So I'm not going to bother with those. The other thing is that the other door had two fixing screws so that the actual door panel, as it were, was fixed to the spacer bar. So there was a screw up there and there was a screw down the bottom. I'm not going to bother putting those in at the moment because this is very, very firm. That was a very tight fit. And I just don't see how it's going to go anywhere. It's not like it can be moved to one side and it will fall out. I'm absolutely sure of that. Because there's only a 3 centimetre difference. In fact, it's less than 3 centimetre difference between the width of the door and the walls, ignoring the spacer panel. So there's no way it's going to move to one side and fall out, and there's no way it's going to move to one side anyway because it's very, very heavy. And it's supported by the shower tray. So again, it's just not going to move. It's just firm, it's not loose or wiggly. So I'm not going to bother doing that because that's just another hole I'm going to have to drill and another screw that's going to have to be siliconed in. So I'm being a bit lazy, I know, but no point doing stuff you don't have to. That is it. I'm not going to seal on the inside because the instructions tell me not to. I'm not going to put the caps on. I'm not going to screw into the frame because it's firm enough. I'm just going to keep all the bits to one side labelled so I know what they are in case I do need them in the future for some reason. And I just need to clean up some of the areas where my greasy fingers have managed to touch the frame. And then I've just got to let the silicone go off before I use the shower. So the longer it has to go off, the better, obviously. Maybe have a shower tomorrow morning and stay dirty overnight. Dirty, dirty boy. Look at that. I enjoyed that. Another good bit of DIY, another good successful bit of DIY. This door was only about 150 quid. It's one of the cheaper ones. And it's got a magnetic strip at the bottom and at the top. So when you close it, it sort of wants to close properly. The similar ones without the magnetic strip, people complain that they stay like that. They stay slightly open because the mechanism isn't sort of firm enough, if you like, to keep it closed. The old one had magnetic strips as well. That's one of the things that got dirty pretty quick, actually, and I think it was partly because people that were using it didn't clean it properly and they used the wrong sort of cleaner, so it made it go a bit funny. Good, job done. End of video. Thank you very much for bothering to watch.